We all know the Beatles for their spotless reputation and their timelessly classic songs like Meat City and Why Don't We Do It in the Road. If you're a superfan like I once was, you may even know the members: McCartney, Harrison, Starr, and the group's founder, Lennon. What most don't know is the dark roots upon which the band was built. Lennon was born into Russia's minor nobility in 1870. At the young age of 17, he witnessed his older brother Alexander's execution after a failed assassination attempt of the Tsar. Lennon looked up to his brother and soon adopted the same radical ideologies, beginning his journey on a quest for revenge. He grew to become a prominent Marxist activist, campaigning for a so-called workers' revolution despite never having held a working-class job himself. He was later arrested for sedition and deported to Siberia, where he would spend the next 3 years of his life. World War I was raging on, and the economic consequences were taking their toll on the Russian working class. After returning from exile, Lenin campaigned for the war to be transitioned into a socialist uprising throughout Europe. By 1917, his Bolshevik party had gained enough power to pressure Tsar Nicholas II into abdication, passing his power to the Russian provincial government. Lenin initially spoke in favor of maintaining a democratically elected government, but this proved to be a short-lived facade. Despite losing the election, gaining only about a quarter of the votes, Lenin led an armed insurrection in the capital, seizing power by force. From that point on, all political parties except his own were banned, and the press was strictly censored. Lenin ruled in his own words, based directly upon force and unrestricted by any laws. This statement proved to be true in the worst way. Factions began to form, and Lenin was quick to rule with an iron fist. During his so-called Red Terror, 50 to 200,000 political dissenters were executed. In 1924, after just 7 years in power, Lenin disappeared, leaving his protege, Joseph Stalin, to finish the reign of terror he started. All the while, Lenin was thought to be dead, but 30 years later, it became clear that that was not the case. Lenin had kept a low profile, traveling around the UK with his skiffle band in search of a young, impressionable prospect to prey upon and indoctrinate. In 1957, he met a 15-year-old boy named Paul McCartney at a local church event and convinced him to join his band. It would soon become apparent that Lenin's aspirations for his communist empire stretched far beyond the bounds of the Soviet Union. It seemed his plan was to use the Soviet art of maskirovka, or military-grade propaganda, to radicalize the West.
Lenin's disciples remain in control of the world communist movement. All they've done is relabeled themselves in order to appear acceptable to the West. There's a passage in Lenin where he says that there may come a time in the revolution when true revolutionaries must put on the appearance and the clothing and the manner and the language of the enemy.
It wasn't long before tensions arose within the band. Lenin expressed frustration with young McCartney, accusing him of only writing, quote, silly love songs, rather than the Soviet propaganda he had intended. After learning that Harrison's taxman was actually against taxes and not praising them, Lenin went on an enraged tirade and wrote what is now the most infamous Marxist anthem of all time. The world was powerless to do anything but sit and listen in horror as Lenin sang this harrowing song depicting a dystopian future that appeared to be ripped from the pages of Orwell's 1984. The song painted a picture of a future in which heaven didn't exist, only the short and fleeting existence on a fallen earth, trapped under the thumb of Big Brother. Generations would come and go as we all watched our loved ones die in futility until it's finally our turn. He went on to tell us we would all lose our country and all our possessions. The song ends with the ominous threat, "You will own nothing and be happy." By this point, McCartney was no doubt well aware of Lennon's KGB ties, and it was evident. But would he stand up for what's right and throw away all the fame and money by exposing Lennon for who he truly was? McCartney sent a cryptic message to Lennon's son in the song Hey Jude. In an attempt to exonerate himself, he urged Jude to, quote, make it better. Jude was unresponsive, evidently already too deeply entrenched in his father's ideology. Lennon then upped the ante with a new single that left no questions as to its message. Lennon was calling for a revolution, and it was working. Threatened by Lennon's influence and insisting on their own form of communism, the Japanese Red Army allegedly sent over an agent provocateur to dismantle and discredit the movement from the inside. Much to Japan's surprise, Lennon was oblivious to their underlying motives, falling right into their trap. Yoko Ono would soon become what many considered to be the quintessential Jar Jar Binks of the communist revolution in the West, following him around and humiliating him wherever he went for the rest of his life. This was far from the worst of it. Yoko Ono would ultimately lead him directly into a trap that would prove to be fatal. In 1980, a man named Mark Chapman followed Lennon home from the studio and gunned him down. Chapman would refuse to comment on his alleged ties to Yoko Ono and the Red Army, although critics are skeptical. He remains in the American prison system to this day. That leaves just one potential bad actor. What happened to Yoko Ono? You may be surprised to learn that she walks free to this very day. In fact, she's never admitted to being an agent provocateur and has gained a prominent role among an aristocratic class of politicians. She even sustains public speaking events in front of audiences across the country. Her angelic singing serves as a veil for her grisly message. It seems the communists have won this time.